Hey guys, it's Vandiezel, back again with the Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we're covering DZ Set 7's penultimate deck profile, not the penultimate turn of the duel. Shout out to you if you know what I'm referencing. And that is Dark State's Oselargest. So Oselargest actually got some really good cards this set, and that's interesting because, in my opinion, the worst out of the DZ Set Start Boss main grade 3s. But now, honestly, he's got some good cards. Let's get the start, shall we, and see what we have. First today, we have our Energy Generator. It's our Ride Deck Crest. You may have more Ride Deck Crest in your Ride Deck. Auto Ride Deck, when you would ride, put this card into your crest zone. If you 1 second, you get to energy charge 3. Continuous may have a 10 energy and auto begin your ride phase and energy charge 3. And then act once per turn, energy boss 7, draw a card. Pretty solid. You get a 3 free energy every turn. On top of that, if you 1 second, you get an extra 3. And if you end up not using Oselargest skill for whatever reason during a turn, you can energy boss 7 to draw a card. But in this deck, you're always going to use Oselargest skill because you want to get the multi attack down. So unfortunately, you'll never be able to use that draw skill. But in case the situation ever did come up, that's what you benefit from it. Moving on to our starter, we have Calamity Malgelia. Grade 0 boost, 5k show, 6k base, all in Rotopon. If you 1 second, draw a card. Standard starter, nothing supposed to free draw if you go second. You're gonna make this any starter you want. I chose to make it Cavity because this is the starter that came in Oselargest DZ set start deck, which technically means is canonical starter, quote unquote. So one of in the right deck. Moving on to our triggers, we have our Over Trigger and Terrifying Wicked Dragon King Vamfreeze. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, Over Trigger. You remember trigger in your deck. And reveal it as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one music, give it +1 minute for the turn. If reveal it during jet check, activate it. Just fight when you, the player, get during your turn. All your vanguards get +1000 power and +1 critical to the end of this fight. All around pretty solid because whether you drive check or damage check this, someone gets a million, you get a draw. But if you drove check this, your vanguard in a deck that can attack 4 to 5 times a turn gets +1000 power and +1 critical. While yes, unfortunately, the vanguard in this deck is not the thing that does the multi-attacking, still being able to give the vanguard an extra crit pressure guaranteed throughout the entirety of the game is amazing, especially if you stack this early, like on your grade 1 or your grade 2 turn, because that's going to last the entire game and your opponent's going to have one hell of a time trying to keep up. You can run Vulnerable for more resistant multi-attacking, or you could run the Asphoria for recycling and crit pressure as well, or you could even run the Dark Trick for hitting and calling, but I much prefer Vamfreeze for pretty much initiating constant pressure if you do sack it. Moving on to our normal triggers, we have 3 copies of Rao's Wild Master Riley. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, contains guard circle. If your opponent's vanguards are grade 3 or greater, add 5000 to the shield. So she's a draw trigger, so she helps increase the hand and hopefully allows you to draw into your more important pieces in the deck, while also being a 10k shield once both players hits grade 3. So after you're being a little bit too aggressive with your opponent, you can end up having the extra 10k shield, which can help keep you alive in the end game. So 3 copies of Riley, you can make this a front trigger, but I feel like the deck already hits decent numbers enough. But again, if you want to make this a front trigger, you can. Then we have 8 crit following it up, 4 copies of Direful Doll Bethany. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base, standard crit, nothing special. You can make this any crit you want. I chose to make it Bethany because it was in the Oselargest deck, therefore it's Oselargest quote unquote canonical critical trigger. Followed that by 4 copies of Stem Deviate Dragon. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 4k base, critical trigger, auto rear guard, at the battle boosted, shove the soul, choose unit, give it 2k for the turn. Pretty solid, it gives you a free soul and plus 2k. This deck can run into a quote-unquote soul problem if you run into one very specific combo play, and while it's not necessarily a soul problem, it makes me feel uncomfortable. So I like having Steam Deviate here for the sake of my own comfortability, but you can safely run this as a vanilla crit and nothing will really change. Again, I just don't like my soul being in that one weird limbo spot. So total of 8 crit for pressure. Then we have 4 heal and Joyful Songster. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base. You're gonna make this any heal you want. I chose to make a Joyful Songster because just like the other cards, it was in Oselargest original DZ set start deck, therefore she's going to come in here with this deck as a 4-of. Moving on to our grade 1s, we have 3 copies of Bogle Puppy, a card who I don't like using, but I understand why he's here. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto rear guard. When he boosts anything, if your vanguards are grade 3 or greater or Oselargest, soul boss will choose up to 2 cards without the same grade as any card in your soul from your drop zone, put it in soul. AK, if your soul has a grade 0 and a grade 1, but it doesn't have a grade 2 and a grade 3, you can fetch a grade 2 and a grade 3. Also, if you end up having, let's say, a grade 0, a grade 1, and a grade 2 in your soul, and you have a bunch of grade 1s in your drop zone, what you could do is you could soul blast the one grade 1, and then boom, you have no grade 1s in your soul, therefore you can get grade 1s and grade 3s from your drop zone into your soul. So it's a way to essentially soul charge one or like swap out cards in your soul, which normally would be super helpful in Dradude because that would help you get different grades. Unfortunately, that's not how it works with Bogle Puppy because it requires Oselargest to be on Vanguard Circle. The reason why this is helpful though is because, let's say for example, you're spamming out a very specific grade 3 who has an ability to soul blast you to draw a card, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You can then use Bogle Puppy to swap out the cards that are extras in your soul with the card you soul blasted. It does require you to be a little bit smarter with your soul blasting, but it does allow you to essentially turn your soul into a full rapid toolbox and have a consistent amount of like soul blast fodder. It is a good grade 1. I don't like using it, but I do understand why it's here, and that's why I'm trying to get more comfortable with it, and slowly but surely I am. It's just not my thing. It's like me using Fall Cape Performer in Drow Jeweled. Yeah, I understand that it's good. I understand why it's there. It's just really uncomfortable. But 3 copies of Bogle Pup because it does keep your soul up to track with the important units you want, while still giving you soul bots fodder for stuff. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Squish Compressor. Great on boost, 5k shield, 8k base, contains rear guard or guard circle. If your vanguards are grade 3 or greater or Oselargest, this unit gets intercept, can intercept from back row, and has 5,000 extra shield. All around pretty solid because you know this unit is a 10k interceptor or 10k guard in general. Once you hit a grade 3, that means you can be super aggressive with this unit and then move it to the back row as the game progresses, and then therefore you can constantly intercept it whenever you need it to. Best part is in a deck that's from Dark States with obviously soul charges, if this ends up in your soul, you can superior call it out from Oselargest's ability to therefore swing with it and have the extra interceptor. Should you do that? No, because you'd rather focus on other targets, but still the fact that Squish Compressor can be used as a superior call target and then give you defensive abilities as well is great. So it's a solid 4 to have in the deck, being able to intercept from anywhere on board and also being a 10k shield once you are on Oselargest. That takes us to our very nice promo grade 1, who originally I didn't like before playtesting it, and then after playtesting it, thankfully now that it's in English, I now realize that it's the whole reason why the grade 3 support card for Oselargest is actually good, and that is Hati Perej. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto drops, and when your grade 3 greater vanguard Oselargest and the card name is placed during your ride phase, if you do not have a copy of this on the rear guard circle, soul boss 1, call this card to rear guard if you called, energy charge 1. Cool, it's a way to keep your soul grades very specifically empty, so that way you can spam Bogle Puppy more, but more importantly, it gets you the extra energy you're missing off of the energy generator, because the energy generator only gives you 3. Now it guarantees you that you'll have 4, so that you can use Oselargest every single turn that you ride, which is honestly pretty solid. As for her second skill, auto rear guard, the fact that she boosted a unit with Tilligan in the card name, shoved 2 rear guards and send Calm as her into the soul, so essentially her and Tilligan, to draw a card and then choose a card from your drops and put it to soul. Cool, so it gets you her, it gets you her in soul, it gets you Tilligan in soul, it gets you a free card to replace her, and it gets you another card from drops into soul, which then Tilligan can then soul boss both Hati Perej and that new card in order to draw a card, and then that sets up Hati Perej for the next turn. This grade 1 is busted, because as I just explained to you, this thing just by simply boosting Tilligan gets you 2 free draws from nowhere. This grade 1 is perfect. It does its job well. It gets you soul cards, it gets you hand cards, it gets you a card from drop zone into soul, and not to mention that its superior calls itself consistently to get you energy, and again, because Tilligan specifically requires to soul boss 2 cards with different names from himself, it automatically guarantees you that you can use Tilligan and automatically sets itself up to be used on the following turn, because you'll still have the Tilligan and soul, so worst case scenario, if you have to superior call it next turn by soul bossing Tilligan, you can. 4 of Hati Perej. She sets herself up perfectly, and the cards she's supposed to set up, she also sets up perfectly as well, so 4 copies of her. Just an amazing grade 1 all around, does her job perfectly. That takes us over to 4 copies of our PG and Ridicule Disruptor. Grade 1 boost, 0 so, 6k base, continues to sentinel 4 sentinels and deck, and also put on guard circle, choose your units, it cannot be hit on the battle. If your hand's 2 more cards in, choose a card from your hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. This means if this and only one other card is in your hand, place it on guard circle, you don't have to discard when it's great, because that means to be as aggressive as in the early game. Spam the ever-living hell out of these two, and if you find a way to cheat chill again to the board, by all means spam this, and then your opponent does eventually counterattack you, put on Ridicule Disruptor, give him the middle finger, and you'll be good to go. It's a very solid PG to have because it allows you to be super aggressive and still be able to defend yourself as the game progresses forward. And again, as I kind of just described to you, you want to push your opponent down a little bit of aggressive pressure because you are playing a multi-attack deck. Therefore, the higher damage count they are before you start actually multi-attacking, the better. You can make this PG with Skill Hate Dragon or Repelled Malice Dragon. They both have the exact same skill as Ridicule Disruptor, but I'd rather run Ridicule Disruptor because she came out close to the time of Oselargest's release, so 4 of. That takes us over to our last grade 1 in the deck, 1 of in the red deck, none in the main deck, a featuring Balancer. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto and Rotopon by Steam Trimmer Nebachar, soul charge 2, and then choose one of your Vanguards who 5,000 power for the turn. A very simplistic skill, because it just is a free soul charge 2 and give the Vanguard 5k, but the most important part, it means the Vanguard can no longer be 15k for 1 to pass. Say, for example, you're playing against your opponent and you went first, so you rotate your grade 2 first. Now, normally, when you don't call something behind the Vanguard circle and you just swing with your 10k Vanguard, your opponent can throw down a critical trigger or something that has a 15k shield while they're at 8k, make it a 23k shield block, and make it so you have to see the over trigger break through. Now, with featuring Balancer Soul Charge skill and the 5k to extra Vanguard, regardless if you call something behind the Vanguard or not, now 15k, regardless if they're on a grade 2 or a grade 1, because that shield would only be a 23 or 25,000 power, now the attack is still 1 to pass, so they have to throw in an extra 5k to make sure that it doesn't go through. And if you call down a boost behind the Vanguard, well, they might as well just take it anyway, because at that point, swinging for 23,000. Aron is a very solid ability, because again, it gets you for 2 free soul, and it makes the Vanguard impossible to 1 to pass without, having to throw down more cards, and then continues rear guard during your turn. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard or Oselargest, it gets 5 as a power. So it'll be a 13k. Is not the worst thing in the world because you can Superior Call out via Oselargest ability, obviously, and give it plus 10,000 power, so it can be a 23k swing. Sometimes that honestly does happen because sometimes you don't have better targets in Soul because maybe you just whiff and then you don't see Haughty Parage, or you don't have cards that are good enough to put from drop zone into Soul for Haughty Parage's ability. But most times you don't want to call for Dream Balancer, but if you do have to, well, it's going to be a 23k of the turn's place. After that, it's going to be consistent 13k, so it's a nice one up in the right deck. Moving on to 4 copies of our first grade 2 Steam Gunner Tizcar. Grade 2 Intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when put on guard circle from the hand specifically, or discard it from your hand while riding from ride deck. Counter blast 1 or energy blast 3 to draw a card. Cool. It does into the CB a little bit, which a lot of our cards do actually want to use, but I can also use energy as well. And again, because the energy generator gives you 3 for energy every turn, a Haughty Parage guarantees you'll have the 4th one for Oselargest. You can mostly feel free to use that energy to help draw cards, while her second skill is auto when placed on rear guard circle. If you persona of this turn, by counter blasting 1 or energy blasting 3, you may soul charge 1, and until end of turn she'll get boost and 5,000 power. Auto pretty solid because it's not a mandatory soul charge, so if you're afraid of decking out, you don't have to. But either way, whether you soul charge or not, she'll gain boost and be a 15k booster for the rest of the turn, which again is pretty solid. She's a nice on-place ability because that ability can proc from anywhere, and that's for being dished from hand or putting to guard circle from the hand. If you guard with her, it can help you draw more cards to guard with on that same turn and keep you alive. Like one time I drew a PG off that ability, or you can end up using her as discard fodder and then replace her with the skill. All around, she's a very solid grade 2 to have. Get you hand cards regardless of discard or put on guard circle, and can be a 15k booster on persona turn, so it's a very solid 4 for me. Moving on to 4 copies of a card I originally did not like because I didn't feel like the deck had enough soul to warrant it, and now again, after spamming Bogo Puppy until again in a very uncomfortable position, I now understand how this deck wants to play, and I'm throwing in 4 copies of Skill for Entertainer. Grade 2 Intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto plus on rear guard circle. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard or Oselargest, CB1, choose any 3 cards from your drop zone and eat them all to soul. It's a very simple CB cost, it just puts any 3 cards you want from drop zone to soul, but the thing is, it sets you up to use other skills, and worst comes to worst, it gives you free Soul Blast fodder for Tillian. 4 copies of Skill for Entertainer, it is a solid grade 2. You technically don't need this in your deck because again, it only gets you 3 free soul from drop zone. You do have to pay a CB for it, but it's nice that it gets you the resources to spam out Tillian. So worst case scenario, if you can't use Haughty Parage's skill, you can at least still have Soul Blast fodder for Tillian. But on top of that, it does set you up to have extra cards in Soul for Oselargest's ability, so you can ditch very specific cards for ride deck and then superior call them out when you send them to Soul via Skillful Entertainer. So 4 copies of Skillful Entertainer, he honestly does his job really well just by sending anything from drop zone to soul. That takes us over to 4 copies of Half Beast Demonic Spear Knight Stagios. So pretty much any of the DZ Star bosses that have the ability to get 4 attacks, they all gain the ability to basically get a 5th attack or gain 4 attacks easier. So in this case, Staragos, obviously increasing the odds of Oselargest hitting a 5th attack. Grade 2 Intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, can change rear guard circle during your turn. If you're grade 3 grade Vanguards and Oselargest, it gets 5,000 power. So simply put, by being on an Oselargest, it's a 15k base. Cool. Second skill, auto and retire from rear guard circle during your battle phase, whether it was retired via an opponent's ability, your ability, or simply put, called over via Oselargest abilities, wink wink, nudge nudge. Counterblast 1, choose a card with a different card name from this card from your soul, call it to rear guard circle if your Vanguard's a grade 3 grade or Oselargest. Cool. It's a simple CB, it gets you another rear guard on board. Sadly, can't call itself, but this is why you stack your soul with Skillful Entertainer. That way you can be prepared to call whatever you want from it. Pretty solid grade 2. It allows for you to do multi-attacking for only 1 CB, and it's a 15k base if you're on an Oselargest. So worst comes to worst, and you want to boost the thing that you call out from soul, it should still be able to hit the Vanguard whether you persona or not, because it'll be a 15k base unless your opponent has some special power up. Either way though, very solid grade 2 to have. Like I said, it initiates multi-attacking and it can hit on its own without needing a booster, so I think it's a very good 4 for this deck. That takes us to our last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the red deck, none in the main deck of Steam Trimmer and the Butcher. Grade 2 is a 5k shield, 10k base, auto rolled upon by a grade 3 card or Oselargest in the card name. If your soul has 4 more cards in it, draw a card. You get 1 soul from your starter, 1 soul from your grade 2. This will count towards it, so 3 soul, and you'll get 2 soul from the grade 1's ride deck skill. So you'll have 5 soul, meaning you have 1 free soul to screw around with however you please and still be able to get the draw effect from that skill. So that's pretty solid. And then it continues guard circle. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 grade or Oselargest, it gets 10,000 shield. Okay, again, like I said with the grade 1, there are better targets to superior call than Nebjuchor because you'd rather have, you know, your multi-attackers, or you'd rather have ways to send stuff to soul, or just Tilligan in general, or pretty much anything else in the deck. deck, but in case you're playing against a super aggressive deck and you think you're going to need the 10k extra shield to stay alive, you can feel free to Superior Call this grade 2 and be able to keep it. And again, another benefit to Skillful Entertainer is whatever you choose to Soul Blast off from Tilligan's skill or Soul Blast in general, you can then use his ability to put back, or anything you use to guard. So if you need Nubichar several times because there's only one copy in the Ride deck, you can just keep placing Skillful Entertainer, keep sending it back to Soul, and then keep Superior Calling it back out. Honestly, it does make for a really great grade 2. You technically do have an infinite guard in the form of the combo I just told you about. And again, most of the time you're not calling it up from Soul, but in case you do need it, it is always there for you. So it's a nice one of in the Ride deck. Moving on to our grade 3s, we have 4 copies of Steam Artist Tilligan. My least favorite of all of the supporting grade 3s for the DZ set start bosses. I have always been clear about this, that I hate Tilligan with a burning passion because he only gained 15,000 power and he would cost you 2 soul in a deck that wanted soul in order to draw a card. But in exchange, he has gotten really good support, and literally Haughty Parage picks all of my problems with this deck with that one skill, because again, it gets you the fodder for that one skill and sets up combos for the following turn. Anyways, grade 3 Genetic Persona 13k base, 2 skills, auto when put from rearguard circle into your soul by any ability. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard or Oselargest, Soul Blast 2 cards with different card names from this card, draw a card. So the 2 cards Soul Blast can have the same name as each other, they just have to be different names from Tilligan. So again, you use Haughty Parage, send a Celestial Soul, send something from Drop Zone to Soul, send Tilligan to Soul, draw a card, and then use Tilligan, Soul Blast out Haughty Parage, and whatever you Soul Charge from Haughty Parage into the Drop Zone, and you get to draw another card. So basically you draw 2 cards for replacing your rear guards. And then auto rear guard, when this unit attacks into anything, by Soul Blasting 1, get 5,000 power for the battle. If for some ungodly reason your Drop Zone is empty, I don't know how that would happen, maybe you're just spamming Skill for Entertainment 24/7, and you're boosting with Tilligan, boost it with Haughty Parage, Soul Blast 1, get the 5k, yada yada yada, you see the combo that I've explained like 3 times at this point. And if you Soul Blasted a grade 3 or greater card or Oselargest in the card name, get plus 15,000 instead of 5k. Oh, another benefit to Haughty Parage, you can send that Oselargest you just Soul Blasted back into the Soul, therefore you can use Tilligan a second time that turn when you Superior Call it back out via the Vanguard skill. Did I mention how much I love this grade 1? It's busted, but point is Tilligan is an amazing grade 3 to have in this deck. Simply put, you Soul Blast out 2 cards, once a Cento Soul to get your hand back up, and it's an 18k, 26k swing when by Soul Blasting 1 card. If you Soul Blast an Oselargest, which this is the one deck you can do it multiple times with because its grade 1 support card is so good, it can be a total of a 36k swing, 46k swing even with Persona Rides. Who doesn't love Tilligan? Honestly, I hated this grade 3, and I said before that I was very open about hating it, but now that we finally have the promo in English, I gotta admit, he's finally showing his true colors. Easy 4 of, and he's really fun to play with. And that brings us over to our last card in the deck, 3 in the main deck, 1 of in the red deck, of Cruel Beast, Demonic Lord, or Oselargest. Grade 3, Twin Drive, Persona Ride, 13k base, Act Vanguard, once per turn. Combat boss 1, insert your deck for 1 copy of this card, reveal it, put it to your hand, and shuffle the deck, and if you do, you get 7,000 power for the turn. So again, you don't have to add a copy to your hand, as long as you just pay the CB, you can just shuffle your deck and get plus 10k power. So it's a way to deck them for Persona Rides, and it also just gives itself a 10k, so it's a 23k base. And then finally, Auto Vanguard, when it attacks into a Vanguard by Energy Blasting 4, choose a grade 3 less card from your soul, call it to rear guard circle, and it gets 10,000 power for the turn. Honestly, pretty solid. It does cost 4 energy, which again, this deck doesn't have access to, but the energy generator gives you 3, and Haughty Parage gives you 4, so automatically there you go, and there's multiple ways to get Haughty Parage into Drop Zone. Literally, you draw 1 Haughty Parage throughout the game, you automatically have guaranteed the energy 4 throughout the rest of the game. But again, being able to get a superior Persona Ride search is great, being able to get multi-attack is good, and again, with the combo I said earlier, when you Persona Ride or Oselargest, you can combo with Tilligan to Soul Blast it out, give it numbers after boosting with Haughty Parage, send Haughty Parage and Tilligan to Soul, draw a card, add the Oselargest back into your Soul, you Soul Blast any other 2 cards that isn't the Oselargest, and as long as one of those Haughty Parage, draw a card off Tilligan, and then call Tilligan back out via Oselargest ability, and then swing with Tilligan, Soul Blast out the newly added Oselargest, and boom, you have a 28k swinger swinging twice. Technically 38k swing if you're Persona Road. All around Oselargest, very solid grade 3. Gets a copy of itself, adds numbers to a unit it calls, and gives multi-attack, which makes for a very simple ability, but all of its support cards really help prop this off a lot, and don't forget the fact that you can Superior Call over Stegos to get 5 attacks. And that, without further ado, is it for this one. I hope all of you guys enjoyed. Honestly, this deck is really fun to play. Like I said before, Oselargest used to be the one I kind of thought was the worst out of the bunch, alongside Astrum, but thanks to the addition of Bogle Puppy, who allows you to do some weird combos with Tilligan, Haughty Parage, who pretty much just hard carries this deck, and not to mention the fact, Still Go over here, who ends up giving you a total of 5 attacks and allows you to pressure out your opponent consistently, it's super fun. And even Tilligan is actually starting to pull some weight now, thanks to the addition of his promo grade 1. So without further ado, I'm going to test one here. Hope all of you guys enjoyed. In the next one, can you guess what deck profile is last? I bet you can. So I'll see you all then. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join us for Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your Vanguards.